In the heart of Philadelphia, 23-year-old Cotta Scott was a beacon of light and ambition. By day, she was a dedicated student, and by night, she cared for the elderly at a local nursing home. Her dream? To grace the stage at the 2026 Miss USA pageant. Friends and family knew her as the kind, driven young woman who could make any room brighter just by walking into it. But on the cool autumn evening of October 4th, 2025, that bright light was tragically and abruptly extinguished. After finishing her late shift, Cotta walked to her car, waved a final goodbye to a colleague, and sent a simple text to her younger sister. "See you tomorrow." It was a promise she would never be able to keep. She never made it home. Her family, accustomed to her clockwork punctuality, felt a gnawing worry as the hours ticked by. At first they thought maybe she just stayed late to help a resident that was just the kind of person she was. But as the night deepened, that worry turned to sheer panic. They called the police. Officers arrived at the nursing home parking lot to find Cotta's car untouched. Her purse, her phone, her keys, everything was there. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken glass, nothing out of place. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. But surveillance cameras from the surrounding streets told a different, more sinister story. Footage showed Cotta walking her usual route home, but just moments later, it captured a suspicious black sedan lingering nearby, parked where it shouldn't have been for far too long. As investigators began to trace Cotta's final hours, they looked into her recent contacts. One name immediately set off alarm bells: 21-year-old Quiet King. King wasn't a stranger to law enforcement. He had a troubling history, including a previous arrest for an alleged attempted kidnapping. Those charges were dropped only because the victim, terrified, failed to appear in court. Detectives also discovered that King had been in contact with Cotta just before she disappeared. As they pieced the timeline together, the puzzle began to form a horrifying picture, with Quiet King right at the center. Meanwhile, Cotta's family, desperate for answers, took their plea to the public. Her mother, her face etched with a pain no parent should ever know, spoke to local news, her voice trembling. Cotta is a bright, beautiful young woman. She wouldn't just disappear like this. Please, if anyone has seen her, come forward. Her plea ignited a firestorm online. The hashtags #JusticeForKada and #FindKada exploded across social media. An army of amateur sleuths, heartbroken strangers, and concerned citizens joined the search. They mapped her last known movements. They dissected grainy surveillance clips from nearby businesses. They shared theories and kept her face front and center. An entire community refused to let her case go cold. They were watching, and they were demanding answers. Then, 2 weeks later, on October 18th, came the breakthrough everyone had been dreading. An anonymous tip led police to a dark, wooded area behind the abandoned Ada H. Lewis Middle School in East Germantown. Under the cold glare of searchlights, canine units scoured the overgrown grounds. There, hidden from the world, they found a shallow grave. Dental records soon confirmed the unthinkable. The remains were those of Cotta Scott. The news sent a shockwave of grief and anger through Philadelphia. The vibrant, smiling young woman from the news bulletins was gone. The search for a missing person had become a murder investigation, and all eyes turned to one man, Quiet King. Armed with a warrant, police descended on his home. Search of his car uncovered the damning evidence they needed: traces of DNA that were a direct match to Cotta Scott. On his phone and computer, a disturbing digital trail emerged. Investigators found a pattern of stalking and harassment, revealing that he had been obsessively watching her for weeks. The most chilling piece of evidence came from a screenshot Cotta had sent to a friend shortly before she disappeared. The message read, "He's been watching me again. I don't feel safe." Her friend had forwarded it to the authorities, but help had not come in time. When police arrested Quiet King on October 15th, just 3 days before Cotta's body was found, he denied everything. But the evidence was a mountain he couldn't climb. The surveillance footage of the black sedan, phone records placing him near the nursing home, the DNA in his car, and the digital footprint of his obsession at all formed a tight, undeniable case. Public outrage intensified as the media exposed King's prior criminal history, asking the question on everyone's mind: why was he free to commit such a heinous act? Why weren't the earlier warnings taken seriously? District Attorney Larry Krasner would later admit to the system's failure, stating, "We could have done better. There were opportunities to intervene before this tragedy occurred." As the case moved toward the courts, community's sorrow transformed into a powerful demand for justice. Vigils were held, candles were lit, and flowers were laid at the nursing home, at the abandoned school, and at Kata's alma mater. Her name became a rallying cry for change, as community leaders and her family called for stronger laws to protect victims of stalking and harassment. In the courtroom, prosecutors laid out their meticulous case. They painted a picture of a calculated, premeditated act. King's stalking, the digital evidence, and the timeline of that fateful night all pointed to a man who had unjust committed a crime of passion, but had hunted his victim. Witnesses testified to seeing him lurking near Kata's apartment and work. Forensic experts detailed how her phone's location data suggested she was being followed in her final moments. The defense argued there was no direct evidence placing King at the scene when Kata died, but the circumstantial and forensic evidence was simply too compelling to ignore. The case became a national story, a tragic lesson in the failures of the justice system, and a stark reminder of the deadly seriousness of stalking. Through it all, Kata's family stood as pillars of strength and grace. Her mother and sister channeled their unimaginable grief into advocacy, determined that Kata's death would not be in vain. They became the faces of a movement, fighting to ensure no other family would have to suffer their nightmare. Kata Scott's story is a chilling reminder that evil can hide in plain sight behind the quiet facade of a suburban neighborhood. It's a testament to the power of a community that refuses to stay silent, and a demand for a justice system that must do more to protect the vulnerable before it's too late. As Keon King faces the consequences of his actions, an entire city waits, hoping for a verdict that will finally bring justice for the bright, ambitious young woman whose life was stolen far too soon. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please consider sharing it. Your awareness helps keep these stories alive and pushes for meaningful change. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that demand to be heard. Stay safe.